third meeting, and this is our presentation with a focus on low carb, meditation, a little bit more circadian rhythms, something on hydration, all really, really good and powerful stuff. It's such an honor to be here with you. Congratulations on making it this far. And, up to this point, it's pretty much just been the basics, the foundations as far as real food. We haven't been too restrictive with anything. This is going to be the first phase where we actually get into some restriction. And by the way, this is the phase where most people really notice some leaning out and some tightening up. Most people, just like with the transition into real food, experience some transitional difficulties, and it's all part of the deal and exciting and awesome. So we're going to learn about a lot of great stuff today. We've gotten so much great feedback from everyone going through this program, and everyone's having a different experience and journey. Some people have dramatic changes in these first 4 weeks. Some people very subtle cumulative changes. But we're looking for all that stuff. Remember, we want to connect with how this program is making us feel. We want to connect with how things make us feel. Energy levels, mental clarity, emotional stability. Yes, the body composition and physiological markers are all important, but we really want to start connecting with how does this stuff make me feel. And most of us, the feedback that we're getting is better energy levels, stronger digestion, better sleep patterns, all the things that we're looking for from a program like this. Skin issues resolving. We have some really good feedback on the supplementation protocols, so it's all great, great stuff. This is from the heart. This entire program is from the heart. So if you have any questions, issues, struggles, need help, support, then all you have to do is reach out to us, okay? And remember to complete your grade sheet. So, the grade sheet at the top box, we're looking for all the positive things that have shifted for you in the past couple of weeks, all the positive changes you've noticed. And these could be extensions from the previous 2 weeks, so maybe things are still, energy levels are continuing to get better or are still better. Ooh, excuse me. So it could be continuations of things. Also, it really helps sometimes to look at the subjective markers that we listed out on page, I think it was 9. We went through and did our self-assessment and then also listed out some things that we want to measure progress with. So take a glance at that to get some ideas. The second box, remember, that is anything that you want to bring to our attention, any struggles or difficulties or issues. And then the grading piece should be pretty self-explanatory. If you use a power-up, the number of days that you use the power-up, even if you use multiple power-ups in a day, you only get credit for 1 day. If you contacted allies for any reason, for an update, for support, if you, for community, posted in social media, then that would mean, or if you post in the application, that would give you credit for that, or if you attended a community event. And then in the lifestyle factors, if you journaled, number of days that you journaled, number of days that you worked out for a total of a maximum of 6, every day that you drank water, every day you mineralized your water, every day you committed to Operation Lights Out, every day that you did the superhuman consciousness, and we have in there gratitude, but it should be the entire process. So that is a misprint. And then if you had 100% days with food, that would be worth a lot of points. All right. Make sure that you transpose your positive changes that you've noticed over the past 2 weeks into the positive changes on page 176 for weeks 3 and 4. And then we'd highly recommend we do this in our meetings, counting your breath count for a cumulative minute, and that would mean counting just your breath, out breath. So every time we breathe in and we breathe out. So we're only counting one part of that. So we're counting the out breath for a minute. We're going to find our pulse and count our pulse for a minute, and then we're going to assess our average energy levels over the past 2 weeks on a scale of 0 to 10. First number that comes to mind. And so let's make sure that we record that information there. On the grade sheet, also make sure that you do your breath, beats, and energy when you submit that. All right. Also, we have a ton of videos available for just refreshing yourself on our concepts, or, we have some in-between-episode type things. So we have the second meeting as a resource. It's on our member site. We have the strategic supplementation video that we sent out, and I think that was we had a lot of really good feedback from that. And again, from the heart, it's what I recommend and do on a daily basis. And then we have our update video in between episode, which was a recap of our goals and some other useful information. We had our Quest sourcing water, so this is so important and something that we've been wanting to do for a long time, and put a lot of research into it, a lot of effort into it, and we got some really good feedback on that. Remember, with the sourcing your water, you're looking to source your drinking water and also clean up your shower head. And then we had the Make This Meeting video, which is another short recap and just a little nudge to try to make sure that you watch this video or make this meeting. And then remember our resource website at superhumansunited.com, password 2legit2quit, the number 2legit Number 2, to quit. Number 2, legit. Number 2, quit. Too legit to quit. Yeah, that's it. Okay. I think you should already be in there anyway. So we have listed out all the videos and documentary homework and things like that. So remember, the Facebook group is a great resource. The application we're still figuring out, so working on some tweaks on that. We're going to have a quest associated with the application here in the near future. You should have watched the documentary Fathead at this point, and remember, there's some key points we want to take away from this documentary. I love Fathead. It's one of my all-time real food documentaries because it's the only documentary I've ever found that really embraces meat and fat and really tries to debunk the conventional wisdom, and it does it in your face. It's a little bit older of a video, we understand that, but it's still got some solid principles in there. A couple of key points that I want people to understand is that, Tom Knott went through that fast food experiment at the beginning of the video, and the point of that is not to say that it's healthy to eat fast food or that it's high quality, but it is possible to make smart choices when you're out and about. Like, I have no problem going to a McDonald's and ordering a double quarter pounder, no cheese, no bun, or In-N-Out protein style, or any of the fast food restaurants that offer stuff like, Subway, getting like the salad bowl with some cold cuts in it, some pepperoni and things like that. Like, I just don't have a problem doing that on occasion. It rarely happens because I'm almost always planned, and I always have a morning meal and I have an evening meal, and I just don't need anything else in between. But I don't have a problem doing that. And understand the quality at these places is actually not that bad. It's the standard quality that you're going to get when you go to any place that serves meat and things. So again, the point is not that fast food is optimal, but it is possible to make smart choices when you eat out at fast food restaurants. Another point that I want to make is that I agree with Tom. It's not the fault of the fast food companies or the sizes or the super sizes of the foods we're consuming. It's really the fact that people just aren't educated on what the right stuff is. And as soon as you understand what you're supposed to do, like, your tendency to make those bad choices reduces dramatically. And I think that's the key point, and that's why we're so passionate about what we're doing, is because we want to empower people with education so they can make the right decisions. And then also, unfortunately, your government organizations and associations, typically all in partnership with each other, don't promote advice or agendas that have your well-being in mind. And it's sad, but it's the way it is. This is a profit-driven country with agendas, and that's all there is to it. So the documentary Fed Up, it's not one of my favorites, but it's fine. It's does a really good job of sugar bashing. And we'd say sugar is not the only problem. It's everything that we learn in this program. Sugar is a part of the deal strategically from the right sources at the right time of day, but it's not the only problem. Like, you have to address all these other things. And I think that Fed Up misses an opportunity like Fathead did. Fathead did not miss the opportunity. It misses the opportunity to embrace meat and fat. And so you see these little scenes and shots and piano music and families getting together, and it's always around these plant-based, huge salads and things. And I think they missed an opportunity to put a freaking big pot roast, on the center of the table with some bacon and some butter, but I think that's just too. They're not ready for that kind of stuff yet, And not that fruit and vegetables aren't healthy, but I mean, it's the total package, and it's everything that we learn in timing things properly. A huge focus on a lot of these mainstream documentaries is getting the weight down, and getting the weight down is not the primary focus, because guess what? There's a lot of different ways that you can lose weight. We're not just about losing weight. Like, we're about optimal health and feeling amazing, and the body composition piece comes with that over time, but it cannot be the only focus, because there are wrong ways to address the weight problem. And then exercise is important. Like, I'm an exercise fanatic. Like, I'm a CrossFit addict, and we recommend exercising, a lot of the time, and we think it's synergistic, but it's not the answer that everyone thinks it is to combat obesity and metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes and things like that. It's a crucial part of the entire picture, but it's not what everybody thinks it is. As a review of our goals from the last 2 weeks, if you have any questions on any of those things, that was the focus for the past 2 weeks, and now we're going to move into the new information. All right, so we always want to reassess our hero section. So if we turn to page 16, I want you to take a moment, pause the program. Pages 16 and 17, we want to assess our known challenges and difficulties and see if there's anything that's not a known challenge or difficulty anymore that we can cross out, or maybe we found a way to work with that and we can put that in the notes below it. And then also we want to make sure that we acknowledge our special powers and abilities, and also acknowledge any new things that we've created. So sometimes people will start to cultivate some skills as they go through this program and cultivate some new new hobbies and interest and things like that. And that's great. We got people that's just start hiking and just started camping with us, and maybe they could become good cooks or good, real food dessert cooks or something like that, or anything that doesn't even have to do with what we're doing. If it's a special power or skill or an ability, we want to acknowledge that. And then extremely important is the power-ups. The more power-ups that you can have, the more power-ups that you can turn to in a day, the better. The more times that you can turn to those things in a day, the better. I notice most of my day is filled with power-ups. Like, I do CrossFit first thing in the morning. I go for a walk with Conan first thing in the morning. I always get my first meal spot on. I always prime and practice. I always take Conan out for several times throughout the day. And I always get sun exposure. I always ground. And so I have all these little boosts, and I don't think about them at the time necessarily, but all these little positive things have an impact versus having these huge breakthrough moments, once a week or something like that. Now, remember the quest we had over the past 2 weeks? The quest was sourcing your water. So if you completed the quest, write the name of the quest there, a little bit of notes, and then the fact that you completed it, you can check it off. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about priming and practice, and cannot emphasize how important this is. And I understand that for a lot of people, there's a little bit of a difficulty, and for most people, it's a perceptual difficulty, because in all reality, the food stuff is relatively simple and elegant, and yeah, we're going to go through some restriction and changing things up a little bit, but for the most part, like, our definition of real food is pretty simple and elegant. Our way of structuring our eating is pretty simple and elegant. This is where the real work comes in. And for some reason, I know that most people, because they're new to it and because they're on time constraints and they have things going on in the day, that there's this perception that this is just difficult to implement, and it shouldn't be, because it doesn't take any equipment, it doesn't take any preparation. All you need is 5 to 10 minutes of sitting down and space, and then you just sit and you work with this stuff. And the more that you do it, just like with exercise, the better you'll get at this skill. And I just cannot emphasize how important it is, because if you don't sit down and think about what you want for your day, then you're being reactionary. You're not getting the things out of this program that we're optimally looking for. So remember, we have on page 70 the prime directives of the unconscious mind. That's always a real good thing to kind of glance over and refresh yourself with. It's how we impact our programming habits and emotions, because we're trying to make a lot of these health habits unconscious, including the priming and practice. And remember, we always want to put ourselves on the cause side of the cause-effect equation. We always want to be getting results or getting feedback to tell us where we need to get results or what we need to change to get results, versus having reasons why we're not getting results. All right, so this is a really good slide to maybe take a screenshot of and glance through here and there, because these are all statements that we came up with as we've been through this progression many times. Understand that you are at cause for everything that happened in your life. You have to acknowledge that and take responsibility for it. Every good or bad thing, and I'm at a point now in my life that I don't even look at things as good or bad anymore, because everything contributes to the greater good, because I'm either getting what I want or I'm getting the feedback to tell me what I need to do to change things to get what I want. Everything is good, right? But the ultimate goal is to understand that you are at cause for everything in your life. I am the result. Where I am today is the result of all my decisions that I've made in the past, even though some of those may have been unconscious, and we're trying to bring those things to light and make a positive change in that direction. So gratitude, remember, is a state changer. So when I sit down for a session and I think about things that I'm grateful for, I change my state to a more positive state, regardless of where I was before I sat down for that session. Gratitude aligns me with what I want to bring in my life, and it is symbolic to the unconscious mind. So when I think about people and things and situations, it changes my behavior with my environment. All right, that's the symbolism piece of it. So always start with yourself and give gratitude for yourself in as many ways as you can think. And then it's beneficial to start to circle outward and branch to people that are close to you, people that maybe you live with, family members, circumstances, situations, and things that are that come to mind, and then let that kind of flow naturally. For most people, that's going to take about 2 to 3 minutes. And then you always want to meditate with a focus. These next 2 weeks, we're going to introduce inner body focus, but you always want to meditate with a focus. Notice yourself drift, and then come back to your focus, and this is going to train focus. It's going to train creativity. It's going to open up more creativity, and it's really going to cultivate this ability for you to catch yourself. I like to call it catch yourself being in a funk or catch yourself being triggered. I notice myself getting triggered all day, every day. And the beauty is in that noticing, I don't go down the repetitive hole that I used to and get caught up in whatever it is that triggered me. I notice that trigger, and then I come back to whatever it is that I'm doing, and I'm less stressful, like I'm happy all the time, and I know it's because of this work that I'm doing in the mornings. And then remember, envisioning activates possibilities. So when I sit down and I think about things that I want in my life, and I picture them and I see them and I feel them, I'm activating the potential for that to happen in my life. If I don't think about it, then the likelihood that it's going to happen is very slim. It's almost like, if I don't consider myself lucky and therefore I don't buy a lottery ticket, then my chances of winning the lottery are very slim, right? But if I consider myself somewhat lucky, I'm a little bit happy and optimistic about things, and I go purchase a couple lottery tickets, all of a sudden I've activated the possibility of winning the lottery. And it's a similar concept with this. You think about what you want, and now you start to activate the possibility of that happening because you're thinking about it, and things start to move in that direction. And the more attention you give to that, and attention we mean just in the morning session, the more times that you do that morning session thinking about those things you want, the closer you bring them into your life, because you're going to start to notice yourself taking action and doing some things, and things showing up and opportunities showing up that support that. So envisioning activates possibilities. Constant, frequent attention energizes those possibilities and brings them closer to us. And then always remember, you have to stay in a state of feeling good. Good health. All right. For us, good health means feeling good, good energy levels, because in that state, you're in a receptive state for the things that you want to bring into your life. So you always have to give attention to the things you want on a daily basis. You have to feel good as often as possible. And then we'd also recommend that you stay flexible with your goals, so that as you continue to evolve and feel more amazing and feel more healthy, and then things start to show up in your life that support the things that you're thinking about, all of a sudden maybe you'll have some new insights and you want to change course and change direction, and now your envisioning changes just a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. We don't want to have an idea of what's going to happen next week, next month, or next year, because that's the beauty and excitement and wonder of this life journey that we're on. We don't know what's going to happen, and that's a great thing. You have to be comfortable with uncertainty. Envision, dedicate some time to this process, be flexible, acknowledge things that happen good, and then change courses you need to, and just be open to opportunities, and don't be so rigidly set into a mindset or fixated on a certain goal that you are closing yourself off to other possibilities. So remember our process: gratitude, meditation, minimum 5 minutes. This week we're going to ask for 10 minutes from you, and then you want to envision immediately after that meditation session. It's the perfect order for this process, tried and true and proven. All right, we already talked about gratitude being a state changer. Aligns you with what you want. It's very symbolic. On page 72, we have some more information on that. Remember, meditation is all about having this gentle focus, noticing when you drift and coming back to your focus. If you don't feel like you're doing it right, that's fine. Just do it. Like sometimes when I go into the gym and work on some new movements, I don't know that I'm doing it right, but I'm thinking about it and I'm working on it. I'm there. I have a concentrated effort on it, and over time I start to learn things and I get better at it. It's the same thing with meditation. You just have to sit and do it. So remember, with meditation, we're cultivating this focus and creativity and the ability to catch ourselves getting triggered, which is, in my opinion, the most powerful piece of this entire process. So we have a great little video here from Anderson Cooper. He did a video on mindfulness, so let's watch this.
Our lives are filled with distractions. Email, Twitter, texting. We're constantly connected to technology, rarely alone with just our thoughts, which is probably why there's a growing movement in America to train people to get around the stresses of daily life. It's a practice called mindfulness, and it basically means being aware of your thoughts, physical sensations, and surroundings. Tonight, we'll introduce you to the man who's largely responsible for mindfulness gaining traction. His name is Jon Kabat-Zinn, and he thinks mindfulness is the answer for people who are so overwhelmed by life, they feel they aren't really living at all.
There are a lot of different ways to talk about mindfulness, but what it really means is awareness.
Is it being present?
It is being present. That's exactly what it is.
I don't feel I'm very present in each moment. I feel like every moment I'm either thinking about something that's coming down the road or something that's been in the past.
So ultimately, all this preparing is for what? For the next moment, like the last moment, and then we're dead. So in a certain way, are we going to experience while we're still alive? We're only alive now.
Jon Kabat-Zinn is an MIT-trained scientist who's been practicing mindfulness for 47 years. Back in 1979, he started teaching mindfulness through meditation to people suffering from chronic pain and illness. That program is now used in more than 700 hospitals worldwide. So how can you be mindful in your daily life?
When your alarm goes off and you jump out of bed, what is the nature of the mind in that moment? Are you already like, oh my God, your calendar pops into your mind and you're driven already? Or can you take a moment and just lie in bed and just feel your body breathing and remember, oh yeah, brand new day and I'm still alive. So I get out of bed with awareness, brush my teeth with awareness. When you're in the shower, next time check and see if you're in the shower.
What do you mean check and see if you're in the shower?
Well, you may not be. You may be in your first meeting at work. You may have 50 people in the shower with you.
Kabat-Zinn says mindfulness takes practice. A lot of people start with a training class to learn how to meditate. He agreed to teach us at a weekend retreat on a remote mountaintop in Northern California. When we arrived, we were told there'd be no television to watch, no internet, not even an alarm clock.
So I'm checking in.
The retreat was full of professionals, neuroscientists, business leaders, Silicon Valley executives. Before we began, we all had to surrender our last ties to the outside world.
Put your devices in the basket, you know. I'm contributing my MacBook Air and my iPhone, happily.
I wasn't exactly happy to give up my phone. I usually check emails several times an hour.
So let's take a few minutes and just settle into an erect and dignified posture.
The retreat lasted 3 days, and most of that time was spent just sitting there, silently meditating, with occasional guidance from Kabat-Zinn.
There's no place to go. There's nothing to do. We're just asking you to sit and know that you're sitting.
Knowing that you're sitting may sound simple. Turns out it's not. The mind constantly wanders.
The mind has a life of its own. It goes here and there.
To not get lost in thought, Kabat-Zinn recommended focusing on the sensation of breathing in and out.
Can we actually ride with full awareness on the waves of the breath at the belly, at the nostrils, in the chest, and then simply rest here in awareness?
Resting in awareness is one of those phrases used a lot by people who practice mindfulness. But when I tried to do it, it wasn't restful, and I worried I wasn't doing it right. I kept thinking about work. I miss my cell phone.
Not alone.
Having a little withdrawal, I will say. Kabat-Zinn, who's written 10 books on mindfulness and led nearly 100 retreats, describes meditation as a mental workout.
The mind wanders away from the breath, and then you gently and non-judgmentally just bring it back.
So it's okay that the mind drifts away, but you just bring it back?
It's the nature of the mind to drift away. The mind is like the Pacific Ocean. It waves. And mindfulness has been shown to drop underneath the waves. If you drop underneath the agitation in the mind into your breath, deep enough, calmness, gentle undulations.
After hours of meditating and 30-minute sessions, it does get easier. Those waves of thought Kabat-Zinn described, they're still there, but you get less distracted by them.
Love it. So that's a great little video, just reinforcing the benefits of meditation and mindfulness. And remember, we have a lot of different ways that we can meditate. Anything that takes you into a state of being focused on something that allows you to notice yourself thinking or lost in thought, and then coming back to that focus, is meditation. So technically, if I sit and work at my computer on a project, and I have this really diligent, focused effort to notice myself or my tendency to get distracted from it and maybe go check Facebook or check my text messages or get a notification or something like that, and then come back to that focus of what I'm working on, that would be considered meditation as well. But for our morning practice session, we always want to have a deliberate focus. And so this week we're going to mess with what we call the inner body. So that's just feeling the inner body. All right. So and then the final phase of that will be going into focusing on the breath. So let's just do a quick experiment right now. What I'd like you to do is just listen to me take you through this guided meditation, and it's just going to be for a few moments here as an experiment. And this is kind of what you're going to do when you do your own morning sessions. All right. So right now, I want you to sit into a good, calm, assertive posture. and I want you to sit upright. Make sure that your head is tall. I like to think about a string pulling the back of my head up towards the sky or the ceiling. I would ask that you plant both of your feet on the ground and you have your hands in your lap, palms facing up, because we're going to do a little exercise with it. And the first thing that I'd like you to do is just be present and just acknowledge the things that are happening around you. So just take a moment to listen to sounds in the environment. You should have been doing that over the past couple of weeks anyway. And just be for a few moments here. All right, now I'd like you to gently shift your focus to putting your awareness in your feet. I'd like you to think about putting your awareness in both of your feet, trying to feel your feet from the inside out. Now you should be able to do this without actually moving your feet. Some people are tempted to kind of wiggle their feet a little bit to see if they can feel their feet. I want you to put your awareness in your feet. Try to feel your feet. Have the intention to feel your feet. Even if you don't feel like you're doing it right, just have the intention to feel your feet. All right, now let's gently shift our focus to the pressure of your feet up against the floor. That's a little bit easier for most people, I think. And now gently shift your focus to putting your awareness in your big toes, both of your big toes at the same time. And again, you have an intention to feel your big toes from the inside out, or put your awareness in your big toes. If you have an issue with that, you can wiggle your big toes slightly, but after that initial wiggle, then I just want you to try to feel your toes. All right, now let's gently shift our focus to feeling the pinky toes. Same thing. And now let's gently shift our focus to feeling the entire foot at the same time. Once again, now that we have an experience with the floor, the pressure of the foot against the floor, the big toe, the pinky toe, try to connect all that. Try to feel the entire foot at once, both feet. All right, excellent. Now, let's gently shift our focus to putting our awareness in our heart area. So what I want you to do is I want you to put your awareness in your heart area in the center of your chest. And I want you to try to see if you can feel your heart. And if you can't, your goal, your intention is to put your awareness in that area to try to feel it. That's your focus. And if you're in that area, I want you to try to look for a heartbeat. See if you can feel your heart beating. All right, now let's gently shift our focus to our hands. I want both of your hands in your lap, palms facing up. I don't want them touching each other for this little piece. And then what I'd like you to do is put your awareness in your hands. I want you to try to feel both of your hands at the same time. And now I want you to put your awareness in your fingertips. All 10 of your fingertips. I was going to say all 5. All 10. And now with your awareness in your fingertips, I want you to have the intention to increase the blood flow to your fingertips. And your goal here is to feel a pulse in your fingertips. So again, put your awareness in your fingertips, have the intention to increase the blood flow to your fingertips, and you should start to feel a pulse in your fingertips. All right, now let's gently shift our focus up to the head. Let's put our awareness in our ears. Try to feel your ears. Put your awareness in your ears. Sometimes they feel like they're heating up a little bit. And now let's come out to the forehead. Put your awareness in your brow and your forehead and relax the muscles in your brow and your forehead. Relax the muscles around your eyes. And now let's gently shift our focus to the nasal passage, the nose nasal passage area. This is really interesting for me. It feels hollow. Maybe because I'm breathing through it just a little bit too. All right, now let's come out to the mouth. Put your awareness in the mouth. Relax the muscles around your mouth. All right, now finally let's connect all of that. Let's try to feel the whole body at once. So what I want you to do is, I want you to feel your feet, feel your hands, feel your heart, feel your head, feel your entire body. Put your awareness in your entire body. Feel your body. It should feel like you're activating every cell in your body, like there's an aliveness to it. So feel your body from the inside out, your entire body. All right, and then when you're ready, you can come back to the room and open your eyes. All right, so that is experimenting with the inner body. So most of you should have noticed as we were cycling through those different focuses, you weren't thinking about anything because you had a focus. And if you were thinking about something, it was probably really brief and punctuated, and then you came back to whatever it was that we were focused on. So it's another example. That's exactly how meditation works. Now, when you're doing this on your own, we're looking for 5 minutes of inner body after 5 minutes of sounds in the environment. And your goal is just to feel the body. You can bounce around from body part to body part like we just did. I would spend some time trying to feel the entire body at once, because really what we're cultivating with this inner body presence is this ability to catch things triggering us, catch physical sensations, catch ailments and issues that are going on. And, not only is it a way to meditate, but it's also a way to cultivate a body awareness, and an emotion awareness, because most of our emotions, when we get triggered, especially really heavy and hard, have some kind of a physical component to it. Now, we picked up this information from Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Power of Now is like one of his most famous books. I really like the Practicing the Power of Now, which is like a Cliff Notes version of the Power of Now. Plus, it has like all these useful little tips and tricks, and it's like the practical usage part of the Power of Now. So I really love that. It also has an Audible version, a CD-based version. So if you'd like to look into more information on that, I would highly recommend getting the Practicing the Power of Now, or both books. Maybe you want to start with the Power of Now and then transition into Practicing the Power of Now. All right, so remember, with envisioning, we always want to end on excellence. So after we do our meditation, we want to think about the things that we want. Ideally, you would have your envisioning material there in front of you, but always end on excellence, because understand this. When I walk away from a session, that is what my unconscious mind is working on in the background, whatever it is that I last did. So like if I'm in the gym working on some Olympic lifts, let's say I'm working on a snatch, and I'm trying some heavy weight and I fail at a rep, I fail at a rep and I collapse or whatever. I'm not going to leave that session on that note. I'm going to leave the session on a positive note. So what I'll do is back the weight down to something that I know I can do perfectly, and then I will do that repetition perfectly, and then walk away from that, because then my unconscious mind is ending on excellence. It's ending on this feeling of doing the right thing and achieving what I wanted. And so it's the same thing with our morning sessions. We want to do gratitude. We want to meditate, practice focus, practice catching ourselves and coming back. And then immediately after that, think about things we want. And ideally, you'd use your envisioning statements, your vision statements, or any other material that you may have. And if you're, out and about and you just don't happen to have that stuff with you, I love to put it on a notepad function on my phone, so I always have it. But basically, you want to think about things that you want in your life and get a really good picture and feeling for it. Focusing on all the different things that we've talked about, so that we're tapping into all these beneficial properties of the unconscious mind. Okay? I cannot emphasize how powerful this process is. So, next 2 weeks, we're doing gratitude for a few minutes. We're sitting in silence for 10 minutes. And now we're doing 5 minutes of listening to sounds in the environment, 5 minutes of feeling the inner body. And if you don't feel like you're doing it right, just do it. Just keep messing with it, all right? And then immediately after that, we're going to think about what we want by doing our envisioning. So I'd recommend having a timer out, doing 5 minutes after you do your gratitude, doing 5 minutes of sounds in the environment, and then immediately transition into 5 minutes of feeling the body. That's a total of 10 minutes of meditation. This entire process should take you about maybe 12, 13 minutes, 15 minutes, and so worth it. So worth blocking that out in your day. I promise you, the more you commit to it, the more you'll notice your days are going to be different and better and great. And then what I'd like you to do starting this week is look for and pay attention to synchronicities. And synchronicities are basically things that seem kind of chance occurrences, and it's like it's things that happen that you're just like, wow, that's kind of crazy. Like there's no way that that's a coincidence, right? Coincidences in our realm, synchronicities in our realm, are indications that this morning process is working. Because remember, when I start to impact the unconscious mind, I change my filters. I change what I let into my conscious awareness. And I don't realize that's what's happening, but I change the way that I perceive my world, and I change the way I interact with it. I let certain things in that support the things that I keep envisioning, and that happens automatically, okay? Just like if I sat here and talked about black Jeeps for freaking an hour, you'd probably go out and notice black Jeeps more. And it's not that there's more of them out there. Your filters have changed slightly. And it's the same thing with this personal process, this morning process, is we're changing our filters. We're changing the way we interact with our environment. And one of the best ways to measure whether that's working or how it's working is to look for and pay attention to synchronicities. So we'd highly recommend having some kind of a notepad function where you record a date and the synchronicity so that you have this running list of all these cool things that have happened. And when I go back and look at mine, sometimes I'm just blown away at some of the things that have happened. A great synchronicity for me was when I was meeting with a CrossFit gym owner at a coffee shop, and we were talking about planning an SHT for his people. And it was the second one that we were doing there. And as we were sitting there talking, his wife texted him and asked him, hey, when are you going to meet with T to schedule another SHT? And she did not know that we were having that meeting that day. So what are the chances of her texting him, asking him that, while I'm sitting there having coffee with him talking about it? I mean, it's crazy. That's a great synchronicity. So just an example. All right, so let's get into the low-carb piece of this. This is so exciting, so fun, so great. And keep in mind, like, this is restrictive, but at the same time, it's the phase that people notice the most body composition shifts and energy level changes and all kinds of different great things. So the reason that we're going to do low carb is, number one, we're going to shock the body into self-sufficiency, because most of us are overcoming years of being or decades of being carnivores, addicted to carbohydrates and insulin resistance and blood sugar handling issues. And so if we pull that stuff out, and we make this a low-carb program temporarily, we're forcing the body into making its own energy. And that could be from protein, it could be from fat, it could be from a combination of those two things. The second thing is we want to prove to ourselves that we can do this, all right? So we have a motto in our community. If you feel like you can't go without something, you have to go without it so that you can prove to yourself that you can go without it and so that you have freedom, okay? So a lot of us probably can't fathom not having carbohydrates. And when you go through this process, you're going to notice, yeah, I can do fine without carbohydrates. And that means that you have more freedom because you're not ruled by food or macros. The third thing that we want to do is experiment to see what works for us. We're going to find that some of us respond really well to a low-carb phase, and some of us have negligible, improvements. And that's fine. That's great, but we have to go through this process to see how sensitive we are to carbohydrates, right? So, remember, one of our keys to self-sufficiency is low carb, and we're always maximizing self-sufficiency, so that's why we're going through this phase. And remember, we talked about in our first meeting the importance of nutrition and nutrients and minimizing toxins. And so let's talk about the different roles of specific macros in the diet. Now, most people, when they think about fat, they think about excess body fat and they think about excess calories. But we already know at this point that healthy fats play important roles inside the body. So number one, we are definitely trying to train the body how to use fat for fuel. All right, that's one of our top priorities. So we have to give the body a signal of fat in the diet in order for the body to make that switch. Fat is also necessary for building our cell membranes and hormones because all of our cells are made up of what is known as a phospholipid or bilipid layer, meaning that we need certain fatty acids for structure. Okay, so even cells in my body that are parts of my body that don't seem fatty, like my nail cells and my hair cells, they are still made up of a phospholipid or bilipid layer, which means that I need certain fatty acids to make my cells properly. And if I don't have those, then I have a problem making my cells properly, and I have all kinds of different dysfunction that comes from that. Now, when I eat healthy fats, I help my body absorb what we call fat-soluble nutrients. So the benefit of fat-soluble nutrients is that they need the presence of fat to be absorbed properly, and when we have that happen, we get these all-important fat-soluble nutrients, and the body can store a lot of these. So they're really important. When Dr. Weston A. Price traveled the world looking for these healthy populations, one thing he noticed was the importance of the fat-soluble nutrients in a lot of these healthy fats. So we'll go through phases where we say don't have so many carbohydrates or don't have any carbohydrates. We'll go through phases like we have a detox program where we minimize the meat signal or the protein signal. But we will never go through a phase where we say don't eat fat, because fat is required for all meals. It's required for all these different things that we're talking about, and we would never say don't have fat, because fat is crucial because of all these different things that we're talking about. Now, when I eat fat, I also stimulate my gallbladder, and I help my body emulsify fats for digestion, and I also help detoxify. So when I have fat enter my small intestine, that signals my gallbladder to squeeze, and when my gallbladder squeezes, it squirts bile into my small intestine to help me break up my fats. We call that emulsify fats. And it's like Dawn dishwashing liquid for fats. You know, it breaks them up, and then my body can digest them a little bit better. Now, also, when my gallbladder squeezes and squirts bile into the small intestine, that's also where my liver dumps its toxins, is in the gallbladder. And so my gallbladder uses toxins and things to create bile. And so every time my gallbladder squeezes to emulsify fats, I'm also detoxifying and get rid of toxins. So eating fat keeps my gallbladder active, which is healthy. It helps me digest fats, and it also helps me detoxify. Now, when I have fat with glucose or sugar or starch, I minimize the impact on my blood sugar levels. So fat with every meal, including desserts, is going to be beneficial. And then certain inflammatory markers, certain inflammatory pathways are managed by certain fatty acid precursors. So some of the healthy fats that we eat get converted into EPA, DHA, and GLA, and that helps support anti-inflammation in the body. So a lot of beneficial roles for fat in the diet. Now, when I eat protein or amino acids or meat, meat gets digested and broken down into amino acids, then I'm getting all kinds of other beneficial roles. So again, most people would think that protein in the body is muscle. That's it, right? But it serves so many important roles inside the body. Enzymes are amino acids, all right? So enzymes are molecules that are the managers and catalysts for all the biochemical and metabolic processes inside the body, all right? Antibodies are amino acids, meaning that my immune system and my immune function depends on certain amino acids. And if I don't have those amino acids in the diet, I don't have a good immune system. Hemoglobin is amino acids, and that is what's necessary to transport oxygen throughout the body. So my hormones, a lot of my hormones are dependent upon certain fatty acids, certain amino acids, sometimes a cholesterol precursor, and then uses that to make these hormones properly. All the neurotransmitters in my body are amino acids, meaning that my brain function, my neuron communication, my cellular communication, my system communication depends on neurotransmitters, and neurotransmitters are made up of amino acids. So we need the proper amino acids in the diet. We need to eat meat. We need to be digesting these things properly. And of course, like my muscle and my heart are made up of amino acids and proteins. Also, RNA and DNA require certain amino acids to be turned on and turned off properly. All right, so when I eat meat and I digest meat properly, I'm getting all these different benefits of amino acids. And then when we eat plant matter has a lot of beneficial nutrients. We have some of them listed out here. And then we'd also say plant matter is very detoxifying. So the point that I'm making with all this is that when I eat fat, I have a lot of beneficial roles of fat in the diet. When I eat amino acids, I have a lot of important amino acid roles in the diet, in the body. And when I eat plant matter, I'm giving myself nutrients, and I'm also helping my body detoxify. The reality is when we consume carbohydrates, for the most part, even though there are supportive and adjunct roles of carbohydrates, for the most part, my body is only going to use carbohydrates for either immediate energy use, or if it doesn't use all of it for immediate energy use, it's going to take the rest of it and store it in glycogen in muscles, or it's going to convert it to body fat over the long term. All right. The reality is that if I went on a low-carb phase for an indefinite period of time, my body would do just fine because my liver can actually create glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis and glycolysis. So my body can actually take amino acids and get glucose from amino acids, and it can also take body fat or dietary fat and break that down into glucose as well. So there is never a time that my body is really going without glucose, because if I don't have it in the diet, my body can make it. Okay, so my point with this is that there is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. That does not mean that carbohydrates aren't beneficial. They are extremely beneficial, and we think that most people are going to do better with carbohydrates in the diet over the long term, but at the same time, you want to cycle yourself through a low-carb phase here and there, and you want to make sure that that low-carb phase, is restrictive enough that you're forcing the body into self-sufficiency, but at the same time, you come back out of that, and then you have some carbohydrates so your body remembers how to use that stuff properly. All right. So if you turn to page 36, we have what we call roles of nutrients in the body, and we cover a bunch of the information that we just covered. And I want you to understand that as a sugar burner, you're always a sugar burner. When I'm a carnivore and I'm dependent upon carbohydrates, I'm always a sugar burner. I'm dependent upon meal timing. I'm depending upon having snacks. I'm dependent upon having carbohydrates with most of my meals. My body composition, if I want to change it, is dictated by extremes, meaning I have to do extreme dieting and manipulation and macro manipulation and things. People that are carnivores are ruled by food. They don't have any freedom because they are dictated by meal timing and trying to keep that sugar cycle going. And over the long term, the more that we're always secreting insulin and dealing with these blood sugar handling issues, the more that we're moving towards a disease state. Now, when my body is self-sufficient, then it's different, okay? Now, when my body becomes self-sufficient and a fat burner, that doesn't mean I lose my capacity to use glucose and starch and sugar, because remember, we're always making that stuff internally, even if we go low carb. But what happens is when I learn how to use fat for fuel, I get what I call metabolic flexibility. Now, my body understands how to use fat, and at the same time, it's always remembering how to use glucose, and so it can toggle between the two and use them in the right situations. When I'm a fat burner or self-sufficient, I'm not dependent upon meal timing. I'm not dependent upon macros. We just abide by our basic rules. My body composition tends to work itself out effortlessly over time. I have ultimate freedom because I can eat whenever I want. I can skip meals whenever I want, and it's just really not that big a deal. And over the long term, the more that we can be in this self-sufficient state, fat-burning state, the better it is for my long-term health markers. All right? So if we turn to our goal page, which should be after the journal pages that we just went through, our goal for the next 2 weeks is going to be to go through a low-carb phase, pulling out all safe starches, fruits, sugar, and alcohol, and that is most nights. Now, what I recommend is that people try really hard to be extremely low-carb Monday through Friday. And then when it comes to the weekends, be a little bit easier on yourself. Ideally, you would just have one cheat night a weekend or one cheat night a week in moderation. And that means on those cheat nights, you can actually have starches, sugar, fruit, a little bit of alcohol. I would recommend just one night a weekend or one night a week. But if you need to, just for a little bit of sanity purposes, fight for a Monday through Friday low carb, and then on the weekends be a little bit more easy on yourself. That might work too. I don't think you're going to get as much benefit as just having one cheat night. And keep in mind, when you get to that cheat night, you don't have to do the cheat night. You can do 2 weeks straight of low carb. And now we have a tips and hints for successfully going through a low carb phase. And so this is a separate handout. And I don't think I have a picture of this handout up here. Let me see. All right, so what we'll do is we'll talk about it, and you should have a PDF of it attached to this email or somewhere in your resources. It will definitely be on superhumansunited.com as well. And so in this tips for going low carb, the first tip that we have there is eat fatty fish and or take cod liver oil on a regular basis, okay? So a lot of times when people go through a low-carb phase, they start to get headaches and nausea, just like when people transition from, the old way of doing things to real food. And something that's going to help with that is going to be having the anti-inflammatory precursors EPA and DHA, and you're only going to get that from eating fatty fish or taking cod liver oil. We're huge fans of using Rosita, and we sell this in our office, okay? And if you're remote, we can ship it to you. You just have to pay a shipping charge with us. We'll also have some links on where you can get it, but I think it's probably going to be more cost effective to get it through our office. And so we'd recommend taking that on a regular basis, even if you are eating fish and stuff. Now, if you eat salmon, sardines, and then take cod liver oil all at the same time, that's great too, because you're just reinforcing that signal. Another tip and hint is to consume salt and make sure that you add salt to the water through mineralized hydration. When your body ends up going low carb, it dumps a lot of glycogen, and in that dumping of glycogen, which is basically our muscle sugar, we also lose a lot of water weight. And so in that process, we're losing sodium and other minerals and electrolytes. And so especially going low carb, it's beneficial to have extra salt in the diet. All right, so don't skimp on the salt. Make sure that you have salt with most meals, and definitely mineralize your water. We want to make sure that we have real food sources of potassium, and the best places to get that's going to be spinach, avocados, full-fat yogurts are going to be a great source. Okay, so remember, we still have dairy in the mix here. We want to make sure that we get magnesium on a regular basis. Most of us are getting magnesium through the real food way of eating, but then also we always recommend, based on our strategic supplementation, that everyone takes some magnesium supplements. And again, we sell that out of our office. If you want to order that through us and you're remote, we can have that drop shipped to your home. Stay hydrated. Make sure that you're drinking water based on our hydration guidelines. We'll cover a little bit more about hydration here in a little bit. We'd say about half your body weight in ounces per day is going to be optimal, especially going through a low-carb phase, because, again, when your body's dumping glycogen, you're also dumping water and losing a lot of the minerals associated with water. So make sure that you're consuming about half your body weight in ounces every day, up to 100 ounces per day. Make sure that you're reinforcing that fat signal. So make sure that you have fat with every one of your meals. And if you feel like you're struggling energy-wise, hunger-wise, just adapting in general, then you might want to increase your fat intake a little bit to give your body something to compensate with. And that doesn't mean that you have to have massive amounts of fat all the time, but maybe just during that transitional phase. We would recommend using MCTs. So you can get real food. So remember, medium chain triglycerides, MCTs, are fatty acids that are really easy for your body to use for energy and don't require much digestive effort. We can get MCTs from real foods such as full-fat dairy products and coconut oil or coconut products. But then also we recommend taking our high-quality MCT oil through Pereira Performance called Captree. And we love this stuff. It's like jet fuel. All right. Now the MCT oil here is pure C8 chains, which are the only ones that go straight to energy use and brain function and do not get converted into fat storage. All right, so when I take MCT oil, I'm giving my body an energy boost, I'm giving myself a brain boost, and that MCT oil is not converted into body fat. It's just used for energy and used for brain function. So we'd recommend considering supplementing with that, or at least eating cheese and full-fat dairy products and coconut products on a regular basis. When it comes to exercise in your transitional phase, if you feel a little bit low energy, we would recommend opting for constant low-level activity like walks and hikes and things that aren't really stressing your cardiovascular capacity too hard. And then as you get more adapted, what you'll find is you become better at all those things. So my performance in CrossFit and my Metcons and my lifting and all that stuff has gotten better. But I do remember going through a transitional phase, especially during my low-carb phases, where I felt like my performance was suffering a little bit and I needed to back off and just do some light activity. And then also, an option that you have is reducing carbs gradually. Now, we should have done this already over the past 2 weeks, because one of our goals for the self-sufficiency piece was pulling back on sources of carbohydrates. But also, like if you're really, really struggling, as a backup, you can have a little bit of fruit on hand. You can have maybe a little bit of starchy something and just do a tiny bit of that in your first couple of days if you really feel like you need it, with the goal of eventually moving towards complete low carb. Okay, so that is a PDF handout that we feel like is very beneficial, and you should have that, and it should be on the resource site, superhumansunited.com. Okay. All right, so we have another circadian rhythm tweak. Remember the circadian rhythm, our master clock. We're trying to align our biological rhythms with the rhythms of the rising and setting of the sun and the earth, and that's going to improve all kinds of beneficial things. It's going to improve my cortisol secretion and my cortisol levels throughout the day. I should have a big spike in cortisol in the morning, synonymous with creating energy first thing in the morning, and that should taper off as the sun goes down. And then that's going to be synonymous with me secreting melatonin so that my body can actually sleep and rest and recuperate at night. Now, the biggest driver, even though there's a lot of things that impact circadian rhythms, and we've listed some of them out here, the biggest driver is going to be light. All right? So you need to get the right kind of light at the right time of day and minimize light exposure at the wrong time of day. All right? So our goal for the next 2 weeks is, in addition to Operation Lights Out, getting sun exposure every day. Now, ideally what you do is you would rise with the rise of the sun. I prefer getting up just before the sun rises. I know a lot of us, that might not be possible, but that would be what is optimal, because most indigenous populations, you would notice, they start to stir and get a little bit of movement going on just before the sun comes up, like almost like during twilight or something like that. And then you would notice the sun in the sky, you would notice the blue sky, you would let the sun hit your skin throughout the day. And what we're really looking for here is a cumulative 30 minutes of bright outdoor light exposure every day. Now, ideally, that's going to be in the first part of the day. And what we mean by cumulative is, accumulate means you can piecemeal it. Okay, so I can do a 15-minute meditation session in the morning sitting in the sun. I can do 5-minute walk, midday. I can take a break outside for lunch or something like that. And as long as I'm accumulating about 30 minutes, and that's what we've seen to be the amount of minutes that it takes to really set the circadian rhythms properly, that's going to have the impact that we're looking for. Now, you don't have to spend time sunbathing, although I think most people are going to do fine with 30 minutes of being in the sun. You can actually be outdoors underneath an awning or underneath the shade of a tree or something like that, and you're still getting that brightness. Okay, so if I go outside right now, the sun's out, and I'm in the shade of a tree, I'm still getting that brightness, and that's the brightness that we want. It's that white light exposure, that white light frequency, that blue light frequency that we're getting from the sky and the sun and things like that. Okay? So in the guide we have on page 65, all the benefits of being out in the sun. So sun is just healthful. I mean, before modernization, before we got all these crazy ideas that sun was bad for you, we used to use sun to heal all kinds of different ailments. So our goal for the next 2 weeks is, in addition to Operation Lights Out, because we're going to continue with that, getting 30 minutes of bright outdoor light exposure every day. Now, when you do those two things together, when I get up in the day and I have bright sun exposure, and then at night I minimize my stimulus, that is the 1-2 punch for setting circadian rhythms and having good hormonal levels and having good sleep patterns, period. Like, that's the best thing that you can do. We're going to learn some more little biohacks to help facilitate this in the future, but that's the best things that you can do for your sleep, okay? Now, let's talk about earthing and grounding. So earthing, or being in touch with the earth, especially when you spend time outdoors, has measurable physiological benefits, okay? If you can understand that for most of our existence, before modernization, before rubber-soled shoes and tires and all that stuff, we spend a lot of time in contact with the earth. And when we do that, we have an exchange with the earth. We have an exchange of electrons, positive and negative, and that helps to combat free radicals inside our body. It helps with inflammation. It helps with setting hormonal patterns and sleep patterns and circadian rhythms and all kinds of beneficial things. So let's watch this short little video from the Earthing Institute on grounding.
So we all know the sun's energy is crucial for good health. But do you know that the Earth's energy is too? When we make direct contact with the surface of the Earth, our bodies receive a charge of energy that makes us feel better, fast. This is called earthing. You see, throughout history, people were always naturally absorbing the Earth's energy. But in today's world, we live most of our lives inside. And even when we do go outside, we usually wear shoes, which prevent us from connecting. So, of course, we often feel drained and achy, because we go days or even years without ever touching the Earth. But it doesn't have to be this way. You can start receiving the benefits of earthing by going barefoot outside. The more time, the better. This alone can be life-changing, and it's free. And if you love feeling great while earthing outdoors, now you can start earthing indoors too. Simply connect your earthing product into the third hole of an outlet, which directly connects to the existing ground rod of your home. This connection lets you safely and conveniently receive Earth's energy from wherever you are, whether that be working or playing, and especially while you're sleeping. Because while earthing, you'll sleep deeper, feel more refreshed in the morning, and wake up looking terrific. And the best part? Anyone can benefit from this life-changing discovery. It's a no-brainer. Start earthing today to look better, feel better, and sleep better.
All right, we had some really good feedback in our live meeting, where one of our progression attendees, like, they had a child that did a science project where they did a grounded plant and a non-grounded plant side by side, and the non-grounded plant withered and wilted, and I mean, same amount of water, same amount of everything, and the non-grounded plant, like, actually wilted and died over time, which was just really fascinating to me. So we're going to do that actually here in our office. So connecting with the Earth's surface energy by walking or sleeping outside or being in contact with the Earth gives you measurable physiological benefits, and we have a bunch of them listed here, and there's also a bunch listed in the guide on page 67. All right, so the goal for the next 2 weeks is grounding outdoors, ideally while getting your morning and or midday sun. Stand barefoot on grass, on earth, or on concrete above earth. So for the purposes of conducting what we're looking for and having this exchange, grass, earth, or dirt, or concrete like a sidewalk that's above the earth in contact with the earth, because it's conductive for the purposes of what we're looking for. Okay? Now, there's no time requirement. We just want to make sure that we give conscious effort towards doing this on a daily basis. All right? Now, let's talk about, I think, our final goal, which is hydration. All right, so hydration, extremely important. We've given some emphasis on it in the previous meetings. So we're, starting the day off with water and mineralizing our water, and just understanding that hydration is extremely important. I can go, believe it or not, days, weeks, and months without food, especially when my body becomes adapted at using fat for fuel. Personally, I could go, even though I'm relatively lean, I could go months without food if I had to, all right? Now, I can only go a matter of days without water. That's how important it is. That's how much we need to consume of that stuff. All right, and that's how beneficial it is for my body. The majority of my body is made up of water. It's found in every tissue of my body. Most of the cell volume of my cells and body fluids is water. Now, hydration in general transports nutrients throughout the body. It cushions our bones and joints. It removes waste. It flushes toxins, helps to mitigate cravings, and empowers our body's natural healing processes. So there's so many important beneficial roles of water in the diet. Some early signs of dehydration we have listed up here. I think the most notable is going to be fatigue and then also cravings. So a lot of times when you have a strong thirst, it's confused for a craving for food. And a lot of times if you have a craving for food, if you just down some water, because you're mitigating, you're helping, if it's a hydration issue, you're relieving that hydration issue, you lose your craving. So one of the first things we recommend people do is if they have strong cravings for anything, down some water and see how that affects things. Long-term mature signs of dehydration, we develop all kinds of different problems. And of course, these are probably in conjunction with other things that aren't on or spot on about our lifestyle factors and way of doing things and eating. But just in general, there's a lot of great arguments for making sure that you stay properly hydrated. The best sources of water, watch our sourcing water video, our Quest video. Ideally, you're looking for reverse osmosis, carbon filtrator, or multi-filtration process, and ideally to have that in your home, but you can also source it from some other places. Clean and pure sparkling waters are okay, things like Pellegrino. I wouldn't be concerned about alkalinity because we just don't see that being an argument for paying extra money for water. But if the water that you purchase is reverse osmosis, carbon filtrated, and it just so happens to be alkaline, I mean, that's fine. But alkalinity is not something that we're looking for. How much to consume? We'd say always start the morning with water, and then the goal for the next 2 weeks is to have half your body weight in ounces per day, up to a maximum of 100 ounces per day. So if you weigh 250 pounds, you'd only consume 100 ounces. Over the long term, ideally, you'd want to hydrate to thirst, but in the beginning, especially during this low-carb phase, it's really beneficial to have a daily hydration goal of about a half your body weight in ounces. All right, so if we look at our goal page, we've got all those different things. That's page 115. We've got all our different goals listed out there. All right. Now, turn to the journal pages, and page 116 is the beginning of these new journal pages. We now have some new modifications. We have the hydration goals. We have the half your body weight in ounces. We also have the new circadian rhythm goal of sun exposure, 30 minutes of bright outdoor cumulative exposure. And then we also have the grounding, ideally during priming and practice in the morning, but it doesn't have to be. Just make sure that you're doing it on a daily basis. T-shirts are in, so if you either ordered a T-shirt or if you're getting one of the ones that come with the progression, those are in, and we should get those to you here momentarily. And then also remember we have the supplementation information. We have a starter pack, which is great. It has a lot of the things we recommend most people need, and then also there's some other things that you may want to be strategic with, so make sure you watch that video. And I think that is it. Like, you guys are freaking amazing. Thank you so much for the feedback. We love feedback no matter what it is. Good, bad, everything in between, because we like the interaction. We want to make sure that people are on path. We're here to support you in any way that we can, okay? We love you guys so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you soon, okay? Thank you.